But I believe we're at episode 8, right? What mediums
Yeah,
want you to know. Episode 8, tuning into your abilities.
right.
And as Carol said, we get so many questions about this. This is a hot topic. We love talking about it.
Yeah.
So we're excited. We're always excited, but we're extra excited tonight because we want everybody to know that we're not special. We love doing what we do, but you're just as special as we are. You have the opportunity and the same abilities to be able to tap in, whether it's to yourself, the spirit world, all the things we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah. Yeah. There's nothing, we always say, like, there's no difference really between us and anybody who doesn't do the work. The only difference is the awareness. Like, we have trained ourselves to become aware of the information that's coming through intuitively, psychically, and mediumistically. And while some people's souls are really excited to do this work on a professional level, and other people are more just like, I want to have the ability, I want to know that I have the ability so that I can use it in my daily life, or connecting with my own loved ones and just recognizing that they're around. It's accessible to all of us. So
Absolutely.
why not tune into it if it's there for us? Yeah.
Yeah. Just another
So,
tool in the toolbox.
right. Yeah. It's a good one to have, especially when you're trying to make decisions in life. Whether it's just a decision of, do I turn right or go straight here? Or it's a decision of, who do I use for repairs at my home? Because Karissa and I had a situation come up today where we were tapping in intuitively and psychically for that. Or a decision of, which job do I want to take? The intuition and can help us make lots of decisions in life. So
Yeah.
it's always good to have that, like Karissa said, in the toolbox. So with that, do we want to start out a little bit? Well, we wanted to say, like Carissa had mentioned, you can put your questions in the Q&A. And if the questions pertain to the discussion that we're having at the time, then we'll go ahead and try to answer them at the time. And then others will just wait until we've gotten through some of the things that we wanted to share with you guys, and then we'll do Q&A for the rest of the time that we're together. Okay. Um, okay.
I think I finally just fixed the chat, by the way. So if somebody wants to try it,
Okay.
feel
Okay.
free to.
And Beth, I see that you did already put a question in there, and we may actually address that question in our what we're going to be talking about tonight. But if we don't, we'll have that question there, and we'll go back to it when we start the Q&A. So thank you for putting that in there. Like we said, feel free to drop stuff in there now if you want to, so that the questions are there for us when we finish talking. All right.
Awesome.
So first, we wanted to talk about a few of the words that might get used a lot when we're in this kind of work. And we both know, Chris and I know, that this work there's a lot of confusion out there about what mediumship is, what psychic is. There's all these myths about it and these stories that got made up that people believed because they saw it in movies or in books. And so we really like for people to know what is the truth about it and what is not, but also just to have some of the simple definitions and words that might get used throughout. And we know, like, it's often confusing to people. They're like, what's the difference between a psychic and a medium? And there is a difference, right? And sometimes people who are working as mediums don't even know that there's a difference between a psychic and a medium, only because they haven't been trained to understand that there is a difference. So we thought we'd start out with just simply describing the difference between intuition, psychic, and mediumship. Okay. So one way I like to talk about intuition is as giving an example. I walk up to somebody and I meet them for the first time, and my intuition makes me feel like, this person might not be a good fit for me. So my intuition gives me that information. That's all I need to know. If I wanted to go deeper into that person's energy, tapping into their energy, I might psychically start to understand why it doesn't feel like a good fit. Maybe I start picking up personal things about them, right? And so that would be coming from their energy, and it would be a psychic connection. So the difference between intuition is just my intuition saying, yes or no to a situation, a person, that kind of thing. But psychic would allow me to tap into that person's energy and find out more about them to get more specifics. I do want to caveat this by saying I would never psychically go into somebody's energy without their permission. Okay. So if I was out and about and did meet somebody and got this intuitive hit of, not a good fit for me, I leave it at that. I trust the intuitive hit that it's not a good fit. I don't need to go further by tapping into their intuition. That would be intrusive to them. So I just want to point that out there so that nobody goes out and starts trying to tap into people's energy. So is that a good, is that how you would describe it, Carissa?
Absolutely. And, people will go, why? Oh, why? That's the same reason why we don't go up to people. We don't approach, people in grocery stores, or if we feel spirit, which both of us, those times are long gone. But in the events that it does happen where we don't approach because same, it's intrusive, it's not ethical. We like to have people give us permission and actively seek us for that. So it's hard because once you start paying attention to these things and you want to develop them, you can kind of blur those lines a little bit. And that's why I will always tell people, I definitely, I mean, neither of us ever do readings after we consume alcohol, but we're even very cautious about the social situations we would put ourselves in, because it can be really easy to read energy if you've had a drink or two. And then all of a sudden, those boundaries, those lines are blurred, and you might accidentally be reading somebody's energy when you're not supposed to be. So even though we're just sort of mentioning that as the cliff notes, it's still a pretty important thing to make sure that you're only tapping in psychically when you have somebody's permission. But yeah, I think that was beautifully said, Carol. And for us, the difference with mediumship, however you want to talk about it, mediumistic abilities in general, mediumship is defined by communicating with something outside of yourself and not the other living person's energy, right? So it is the direct connection to the soul or the spirit of somebody that is no longer in body, that was physically here on earth. And we get a question a lot, are guides also part of mediumship? And I would consider that spirit guides who we're communicating with are part of mediumship, because they're outside of ourselves. There are other beings that we're communicating with to get information about you. And that's where it can kind of get blurry, right? Like, well, what is psychic versus what's coming from guides? And I like to work with guides because I feel like they have a higher vantage point, right? So, like Carol's saying, we're going to tap into your energy to read psychically what's going on in the situation. That's you telling me what you're going to do, how you feel about something, how you're going to respond to a given situation. Your guides are the one that are going to point out opportunities. Well, you could do this. If you take this job, this could potentially happen. You could go this way or that way. So I feel like they offer us branches of possibilities, but we have to take the action to make those things happen. And your psychic, this is tuning in psychically to somebody, is going to tell me, well, they might have those opportunities, but they're not going to do them. So, if that makes sense, we kind of need to be able to have, I don't want to say free reign in a reading, but we do need to be able to have discernment over those different things, because oftentimes people will go, well, why does it matter where you're getting the information from? And it matters because part of our ethics and training is that we don't ever want to put words in spirit's mouth, right? We don't want to ever give you information and claim that it's from your loved one when it's really coming from your guides, your energy. And that distinction in a reader, somebody that can do this work, is huge. We both believe it's so important and so full of ethical responsibility, because you need to know where that information is coming from. You can think of personalities, right? We know personality crosses over with loved ones. And so you might get grandpa that comes forward and says, oh, I think you should buy that house in Florida, go for it. And he may be absolutely well-meaning and see that everything in that Florida house is going to work out for you in a whole bunch of different ways. But your guides might come in and say, financially, it's not the best time. Give yourself 6 months. And then it feels like that message might be there for the right timing. So I don't think they're ever throwing us off or giving us wrong information, but I do think knowing where all that information is coming from and being able to sort of blend both, and also using our psychic abilities to tap into our clients, also helps us understand where their capabilities are, what they're open to, and where they might not be open. So it's a lot. It's complicated, truly. But I guess the main difference is, like Carol was saying, your intuition is that nudge coming from you. It's your soul's GPS system. Your psychic ability is being able to read somebody else's energy or the situation, an object, even a physical environment. A lot of times when people go into spaces they would claim as haunted, that's what they're doing, is they're just psychically reading the imprint that's left over energetically in that physical space. And then mediumship is directly communicating to spirit.
Mhm.
So that's how we define things.
Yeah. And Beth had a question. So, like, she's saying, like, so you would clarify to your client if the information is coming from a guide versus a loved one in spirit. And yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Chris and I both feel like it is important for our client to know where the information is coming from. And it's important for us to have learned to know where the information is coming from. Because I mentioned before, there's a lot of people out there who may say that they're a medium, but they don't know that there is a difference between psychic reading and mediumistic. So they're actually psychically connecting in to their client to get the information of who this client might be, wanting to hear from, who's like energetically in that client's psychic memory kind of thing. And so they're getting all the information from the client's energy, not necessarily from the person in spirit. And we both feel that's unethical to tell somebody we're connected to your loved one in spirit if we're not, and we're actually psychically reading our client. So it does take a lot of development to get to know the difference, and to get to know the difference between what is information coming from a guide versus a loved one. And also, like, I don't work with angels all the time, but they've come through a handful of times for me. And when they do come through, I will say to my client, this is not coming from a guide or from a loved one. This is actually coming from an angelic being. I've also had fairies come through to give me information. I know that sounds a little woo-woo. And in the days early on for me, I would have been very judgmental about that and been like, seriously, fairies, what? But I've now learned that there are, experiences that can happen with fairies. So I know Karissa and I both try to be very, very clear of what realm or what kind of being is sharing that information with us. And I had a situation yesterday doing a reading where some information came up about the client. And so I told the client, like, I was talking to her loved one, but the information that came was coming psychically to me. So I said, I want to make it very clear to you, I'm getting this psychically. But then her loved one jumped in and said, why do you think I can give congratulations earlier? It has to do with what you just picked up psychically about her. So the loved one in spirit had been trying to give me that information earlier, and I wasn't picking up on it, but I got it psychically, and then the loved one came in to confirm it. So
Yeah.
it's
Love that.
kind of it's always fun, like every experience when we're doing a reading is going to be different, and we learn from every single one. But knowing the difference between the psychic and the mediumistic is important. And like Karissa said, a psychic connection doesn't have to be just to a person. It can be to an object. You may see somebody who's giving psychic readings that asks to hold your necklace or a piece of your jewelry so they can tap into your energy. It's called psychometry, and that's a psychic reading. So it can be they're connecting to the object and your energy is connected to that object, or it can be a place, stepping into a room and tuning in to the memory of the experiences that have happened in that room before. And so that's where psychic residual energy is too. So we know
Absolutely.
that's a lot, and hopefully it's not too confusing, but if there's any questions about it, please keep asking them. Um, and I know, Elizabeth, you had something you wanted to share, and we will talk about that in the Q&A part of it too. Okay.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these questions talking about practice and things we're going to address too as we continue to go on. But learning discernment is big, right? So even if you're not at the space where you're with your own abilities, where you kind of know where the information is coming up from, that would be something that you would want to investigate first. Most of us have trained sort of like extensively to be able to figure that out. But we're going to go over a couple of different exercises to tune in very specific ways. And the more you do that, you're sort of like creating that, what I would say, neural pathway or that connection for yourself. So it starts to become more familiar. So you can sort of section off what's coming from where. And with practice, and the longer that you do it, the better you're going to get at it. Just like anything else. That's the nice thing about these abilities is they're like anything else, ice skating, whatever. The more time you put into it, I mean, I'm probably never going to be an ice skater, so that's not fair. But any amount of energy that you put into it, you'll be able to get it back. It might not always be in the time span that you want it to be. So you have to learn to let go of control of that. But truly, it will come back around one way or the other.
I think that that brings up a good point too, Carissa, because I think in people's head, and I think society has kind of created this belief that if you just go take a class, you'll become a professional
Yeah.
medium like that. And it does take a lot of work, a lot of development to be able to understand how it all works. I mean, I know the people that take my classes will often laugh and say, as Carol says, practice, 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 and more practice will help you, you know. So it is really important to know going into it if it is something that you're interested in maybe doing, and following down the path of it. Like, don't put this hard expectation on yourself of like, oh, just go take a weekend class and then I'll be ready to do it for work. That's a really unreasonable expectation. It would be more like putting lots of time into the development and learning and understanding. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. All right. So we are going to talk a little bit about, so we've talked about the difference between mediumship, psychic, and intuition. Now we're going to talk about, in terms of abilities, how are you getting that information, right? And some of you might already know, some of you have not heard the terminology before, but we call those the clairs for short. They're your psychic senses. And each sense that we have in the physical world, our regular working senses, we have sort of a flip side, if you will, all the upside down of your psychic senses of that, right? So for seeing, we have clairvoyance. For feeling, we have clairsentience. For hearing, we have clairaudience. And the senses are similar to how you experience them in the real world, but they would be extrasensory perception coming through in those psychic senses. And the biggest misconception that I love to get out there right away is most people start off with a predominant clair. You'll hear people that will claim to be, oh, I'm a clairvoyant, I'm a clairaudient. And realistically, anybody that has abilities, which is all of us, has a natural predominant clair, a natural sense that is most comfortable to them, that they've accepted information from, that they've unknowingly allowed themselves to receive. So it keeps coming in that same channel. And some people will just work to continue to develop that channel for years and years, and they kind of will stay in that. And it's not necessarily that there's anything wrong with that, but if you could have access to all of the senses, why wouldn't you want them? Right. So the goal is a well oiled machine through different exercises and training to get all those clairs turned on, all those psychic senses working. So then I used to have a teacher who I love, and she used to say it was like spiritual charades. It's a little bit of seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, all of those things happening so fast. And I mean, I don't know, sometimes it starts really slow for people too. So I feel like for us, it's really fast and overwhelming when the information comes in. And we've worked some channels for that to make sense to us. But a lot of times with students, it can feel really painfully slow at first because you're waiting for those bits and pieces to drop in through your clairs.
Mhm. Yeah. And I think a lot of times, and this might be getting a little advanced, so I don't want to discourage anybody from it, but a lot of times the information is dropping in, we're just not aware that it's dropping
Yeah.
in, because it comes in so quickly and so subtly. So, because people think that when we get intuitive information, when we get psychic information, when we connect with loved ones in spirit, that it's like somebody screaming at us or jumping up and down in front of us, like, hey, pay attention, I'm right here. And that is absolutely not true at all. Like, the information comes in so subtly. I often say, like, intuitive information and psychic information comes in for me almost like wind blowing a message through me, and it goes through and then it's gone. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
hang out in front of me like, hey, I got to tell you this again and again and again. It's just like it's here and then it's gone. Did you grab it on its way through? And did you notice how subtly it came in? Um, and the other thing, other big misconception is everybody thinks that in order to be a medium, you have to see everything clairvoyantly, right? How many people have you worked with, Carissa, that said, oh, I don't think I'm a psychic or medium because I don't see stuff? I'm not
Yeah.
seeing it. And they wait and they wait and they wait to see something instead of noticing that they're picking up psychic or mediumistic information through all the other senses. They might hear somebody speaking to them from the spirit side. They might have a knowing about something. They might have a feeling in their body somewhere, but they ignore all that because they're just waiting to see something. And that's not necessary. With all these other senses, you don't have to wait for the clairvoyance to kick in. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Starting to pay attention to those other ways that information can come in is perfect. And that's really one of the best ways to get started and allow your intuition to get louder and those pieces of information to feel more sparkly, if you will, right? Because sometimes that's the thing is, and the best part is when people start to pay attention and they start to sort of train these pieces, they get louder first. So for Carol and I, who've been doing this for a long time, it's gotten more subtle over the years. But before you get to subtle, you get louder. So that's great. You know, we love that if you're just starting to attend and sort of practice, you have that to look forward to for the most part. Might not be across every single clear, but you should experience it with the antenna and the volume getting turned up a little bit first.
In your predominant clair, maybe,
Yeah, and your predominant clear,
but noticing
exactly.
it in the others in the subtle ways. Yeah.
Yes. And that's the difficult thing about, practicing and doing any of these classes is you're first going in and you're looking to turn it up and to get it louder and brighter so that you can hear it better and work with it and all the different ways it's coming forward. But I think somebody asked a great question that said, "Oh, during these webinars, do either of you have people trying to come to you, even though you're not doing readings?" And no, because a big part of that training is learning how to turn it off. It's really, it's kind of this paradox. You have to learn to get it really loud and understand it. And you also simultaneously have to learn to turn it off. So when we're not doing readings, we are sort of dead to the other side, if you will.
Pardon the pun.
Yes. I was like, we're giving them the reverse experience. They're probably screaming at us, and we're like, sorry, I don't know that you're there.
Yeah.
Uh,
We've turned down the awareness. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. But great question.
Which brings me to a point. Do we want to do a little exercise that
Yeah,
like play with the awareness a little bit?
absolutely. So
Okay.
you lead them through this exercise, and then I'll give a one to do at home
Okay.
after.
Okay. So this exercise is something I call noticing your senses. It's something I do on a daily basis. And what it's doing is it's strengthening the awareness muscle because our awareness is our intuition, our psychic, our mediumship ability is all about our awareness. What are we noticing? What are we picking up on that we are receiving from other realms, other people's energy, that kind of stuff. So this just helps us to build the muscle of awareness, which expands our intuition. So what I always like to do is I just like to sit quietly. You can do it in a room, you can go outside if you want, but for the purpose of tonight, just stay where you are. We're not going to go, running outside or anything. Just stay where you are, taking a few breaths just to relax. And then with your eyes open, just looking around your space, or maybe you could look in mine and Carissa's space too if you want, and just notice the things that you see that you wouldn't normally notice. It could be something small, it could be something big, it might be something on the floor or up on the wall or in the ceiling. It doesn't matter. Just notice, don't judge it. Just see what you see and then move on to keep noticing other things, all with your vision.
Let your gaze go soft. So if you're a 90s or 80s millennial kid, think about Magic Eye. When you had to you remember those patterns that you had to like almost cross your eyes to see? You'd have to go that hard,
I'm a
but
lot older than you,
soft
Karissa.
gaze.
Okay. So just looking around to see. And then I want you to close your eyes and I want you to listen and see what you hear that you might not have noticed before. And then, still with your eyes closed, tune into your sense of smell and notice if there's any scents, any smells that you hadn't noticed before. Or maybe you had noticed it before and it's coming back to your attention now. And still with your eyes closed, I want you to tune into your physical body, scanning from the top of your head to your shoulders, and notice if there's any place in your physical body in that area that draws your attention. Maybe there's a sensation that you hadn't noticed before. And then, still with the eyes closed, scanning from your shoulders to your hips, is there any sensation in that part of your physical body that you hadn't noticed before? And then bringing your attention from your hips to the tips of your toes and noticing if there's any sensations in that part of your physical body you hadn't noticed before. Now, still with your eyes closed, a knowing or a thought is going to drop into your head. Let it drop in. The first thing you get, accept it. And that's it. So take a couple of breaths, bring your eyes open again, rejoin the room. That thought or the knowing that dropped in, you want to do that one really quickly so that you don't have time to change it or say, oh, that's stupid. Why did I think that? I'm going to think of something else. You don't want to think of anything else. You want the knowing to just drop in and you receive it. And sometimes it might be something very strange. One day I got, and all my students have probably heard this story, but I got a knowing of gold is king. I don't do financial stuff, so I didn't know why I got that message. But later that day, I found out the price of gold skyrocketed. And you get random things. It seems random, but it's information. So just receive it. Don't try to change it. That exercise we went through very, very quickly. When I do it on a daily basis, I like to spread it out a little bit longer, spending 5 minutes on each sense. But there's also, you can definitely do it quickly like we just did. Each time you do it, you're strengthening the awareness muscle, which expands your intuition. So you're just making it so that as you go through your day, your awareness becomes more available to you. The muscle has started to build itself and it works without you thinking about it,
Yeah,
Of course, it always helps to
absolutely.
put down the phone and not try to multitask. So,
Yes, our attention spans continue to get shorter, which is hard, I think, for the spirit world. They feel like they're competing more and more. Um, but yeah, that was fantastic. And just to point out, an exercise you can do forever. That one never gets old. You can do it no matter how long you've been practicing. And that's the best part of a lot of these exercises you can continue to do. One of the things I wanted to mention is you'll hear, in terms of like really what we're talking about is bringing awareness to these other clairs, these psychic senses. You'll hear people talk about meditation being so synonymous with like spiritual practice or mediumship development. And it's true. And the reason for that, the magic, is that it is bringing you into a receptive state of mind, right? It's allowing your mind to get into that space where you can notice things, even though traditional meditation practice will tell you the idea is not to notice things. First you have to find a way to get your space and your head space into the space, I guess, if you will, of allowing things to just drop in, which is what meditation is going to teach you. So that's another way to help yourself get there. So you can even combine these with like a quick 5-minute meditation and then go into the exercise Carol just did. And that is gonna, you're already gonna have, lowered your threshold of your awareness. So it will naturally flow into the next exercise, but you can kind of play around with that too. This exercise is very simple. It is just a psychic exercise, which is good. Even if you're like, oh, I just want to talk to dead people, you still have to flex those psychic muscles, learn to build them up, get them to be really strong, and work with them. This is so simple that you're going to laugh. But you need three, at least, minimum of three, and it has to all be the same object in different colors. So here I've got pens, red, blue, and green. And I think if you're going to do this with colors, which is the intention of the exercise, try to stay away from blue and green. Try to do yellow, red, or colors that are very different from each other. But the idea is you have to have three of the same things. See, a lot of people do this with crystals, and if the crystals are not all shaped the same way, you are going to subconsciously trip yourself up here. So having identical objects in at least three different colors. My other favorite way to do this game is with the sugar packets in restaurants. So you've got the sweet and low, which is usually pink, the white, which is the sugar, and the equal, which is yellow. I've been making my kids do this psychic exercise since they were toddlers, and we still do it when we're waiting. So essentially, all you want to do is close your eyes, take a deep breath, and you want to shuffle them in your hands so that you can't have any association with where you're holding which one. That's why I tell my kids they can't use the sugar in the raw packets because you can tell the sugar's thicker. So you have to use all the same grain ones, and you just keep shuffling them. And then you want to do is put the other two down and just hold this in your hands. You can't see it. Your eyes are still closed, and you just breathe and say, color come to my mind. And the first color that steps in, it might be that you're visualizing this actual object in that color. It might be that if it's blue, I see the ocean, and your job is to not judge whatever comes forward. If you get the ocean or if you get the sky, you're just going to say it out loud and you're going to go, no idea, I'm seeing the sky, or no idea, I'm hearing seagulls. You don't have to know. The idea is to pay attention, just like with the awareness, to allow the information to come up and then to open your eyes and try to make the connection. Oh, I heard seagulls, blue. I always think of blue with the beach. That's probably what I'm getting. And then you're starting to build your own symbolism too, which is a big part of how our work will develop over time, is learning your own language, and that we'll talk about that with dreams too, because that's important, especially to somebody's question. But that's it. You can do it any three objects, different colors. You can do it for 5-minute increments too. You can just don't drive yourself crazy doing it 20 minutes in a row, because then it gets really old. But you'll notice the first couple are usually off, and then you get in the flow, which is what you're really looking for.
Karissa, Beth asked if you would
Yeah.
repeat that instruction again, and I'm going to grab
Oh,
something.
sure. Yeah. So basically, shuffle the objects. Sorry, just drop one of the pens. Put two out of the three down. Again, your eyes are closed the whole time. Then keep that third object that you've picked in your hands, and you're just going to put the intention that the first piece of information comes to you. You're going to pay attention and allow it to be. So if you get blue, then red, you're just going to push that out and open your eyes and go, I saw blue first, and then reveal the object. If you got blue, or if you got red first and then it was blue, that's okay. You're working this out. You're learning how to pay attention. That was probably your analytical mind, your conscious mind that was jumping in with something that you were expecting, and then it turned out to be something different. And that's part of the process, is learning what comes from your analytical side, what comes from the intuitive side or the psychic side. So can we demonstrate? I don't know how to demonstrate it any more than we have. So yeah, but
So, just
there we go.
so
My
I,
cleaners.
I teach actually color readings in one of my classes, and so I got these on Amazon, right? And you can get a whole bunch of different colors. So if you wanted to like play with it, like I would say go with Carissa's, like the way she explained it to start off, so that it's just like you have three choices. It doesn't make it really complicated, but as you want to keep building your confidence with it, adding more colors into it. And like she was saying, like, you could lay them down on the table. Just take the colors and lay it all down on the table with your eyes closed and just grab one And then whatever comes to you with your eyes still closed, whether it's the name of the color, whether it's, she was saying like, maybe the name of the color blue comes to you. Maybe you see blue spelled out in front of, within your head, but in your third eye area, or maybe you see a vision of an ocean, and you connect that to blue. Or maybe you just have the knowing of the word blue. However it comes, don't question it. Just be like, okay, blue. And then open your eyes and look and see, is that the color that you had picked up and had in your hand? And you just keep playing the game over and over. And somebody asked the question, like, how do I build my trust? Well, this is a great way to do it, and keeping a journal of, not only this game of like, oh, I played my color game today and I got 5 out of 7 right, so that's 5 intuitive hits that I got. But also today, I'm going to write in my journal that I thought of my sister and then she called, or I thought of the number 3 and then, 333. And then I looked at the license plate in front of me and it was 333. Or I thought of New Hampshire and looked at the license plate in front of me. It was in New Hampshire. If I was in New Hampshire, that's not so psychic, but I'm in South Carolina. So, so just like what we call our intuitive hits, start keeping a journal of writing those things down, and you'll start to notice, wow, I'm actually getting a lot of intuitive stuff throughout the day. I didn't realize that starts to build your trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And the object is not the magic. So I love that you did this, what are they? Pipe cleaners.
Yeah.
Yeah, I teach with my students ribbons, right? Which you do too. We've both done that with, like, you can just continue to collect it with ribbons, flowers. It doesn't matter what the object is. You just want it to be multicolored. And then, as you said, add more on as you get better at it. And just to be clear, which the attitude of gratitude is what it's all about, right? That's what keeps the clarity coming and keeps your senses getting even more tuned. Nobody's going to be expecting anybody to be batting 100%. Okay. Carol and I have over 30 years of combined experience professionally together, and still we wouldn't get 100% on every single one of these. So don't beat yourself up. That's not the goal here. You just ideally want to notice your patterns, and don't do it to yourself in a way where you're like, okay, I have abilities if I get this right. You kind of have to come it from this like, relax, no big deal. I'm going to do it 10 times. And there's the other thing I'm going to say is, don't torture yourself and just do it 2 or 3. You have to give yourself at least 10 rounds to be able to get into receptive mind state for it to start flowing. But yeah, it's just these little things that, believe it or not, will work those muscles and get them louder and stronger, and you will become more, it's not even, I mean, of course it's your awareness as well, but you become more of the expert of your own internal system and experience of your psychic senses, which is really what we want.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know there were some questions that were coming up, like ways to practice, which these are some of them. Also, like finding other people to practice with. And then there's classes that you can take. I will say, I always caution people, there's a lot of practice circles out there, is what they call them. And I will say, I'm always a little cautious about those, because what happens a lot of time is there's no formally trained psychic or medium in there, like no teacher who's got a lot of experience that can help people through the things, the strange things that come up while we're doing readings of like, what just happened there? Why did that happen? And so people that are not really experienced and are just guessing at, well, try this or try that, can actually lead other people to start creating really bad habits in the work and not really understanding what's going on. So if you are going to get involved in some kind of practice circle, I would highly recommend that it's a practice circle that's led by an experienced teacher. When I say experience, that does not mean somebody who's been working as a psychic or a medium for a year or two. It means somebody's been doing it for a while and has been through a lot of different experiences, that they can help guide you through it when it comes, when it happens to you in your practice. So I just want to caution that I actually recently read an article by somebody who was saying like they see more problems come out of people who go join practice circles with no official experienced teacher. They see more problems come for those people than they did growth. And so I would just caution about that. If you're going to join a practice circle, make sure it's led by somebody who knows what they're doing and they're there to help move you through things.
Yeah.
But Carissa and I both offer classes, and circles, practice circles. So, like, we'll just quickly tell you about our classes in case that is something somebody's interested in. Carissa, do you want to mention yours?
Sure. I have a 4-week beginner course, which is called the Practical Medium, because I really love to tie all of your spiritual abilities to practical use here in this physical world, because this is where we're living. So that's sort of my take on it. And I do a 4-week course online. And my course starts, I believe, August. And Carol and I will definitely send out an email letting everybody know, how to sign up for any of these if you're interested. So again, we're just briefly mentioning these. It's most important that you have a reputable teacher.
Yeah. I have Awaken Your Ability. I teach it 3 to 4 times over the course of each year. I started that class in 2015. I think so. I've been teaching it for a while. And it helps to like get the fundamentals of intuition, psychic and mediumship, working with guides, understanding like all the clairs, blending with spirits, like different things like that. My next one is in Charleston, August 15th and 16th, so same weekend that yours starts. But mine's a weekend course. It's all day Saturday and all day Sunday in Charleston. And then I just put some online courses in that people can take at their own pace. So I've got one that's a workbook. It's called Let's Get Into It. And it's just explaining to you what is intuition, psychic, and what's the difference, and some exercises and meditations you can use. And then the other one is called Essentials of Awaken Your Ability. So it's the fundamentals of my Awaken Your Ability class, that's like you can do at your own pace. So if you can't come to Charleston for the class, that would be a good option to take. Or you take it and, kind of see whether you like me as a teacher or not. And then if you did, you could, come and do the in-person one. I love in-person classes. I love to be with people. So, um,
You can't go wrong with any of these choices. We love to be live with people, and Carol has such a beautiful space. So if you can make it in person and you like in person, highly recommend her gorgeous space. I love to do online just because I'm still a mom, got crazy stuff going on everywhere. So I love to just have everybody tune in for wherever we do it live too. But we have lots of options. So you have options. I know we sent out a book list last time with our last episode. So we can always copy and paste that in the email. We'll send out this one too, for some of those are great books to help you get started as well. But, in terms of, there was a couple questions here that tied into with this practice piece, which was how do I find people to practice? As Carol said, be cautious of these circles. I would also say, do not read your family. Okay. Part of a lot of what I talk about in my course is your own personal bias and how you're going to bring that into readings. And it's something that as you begin to be a student, you really have to work through and learn to sort of undo your own personal biases. And the hardest place it's to do that with is with your family, because you know their backstory, you have your own personal opinions about maybe they should quit that toxic job, whatever it might be. So you cannot, from an unbiased space, give them a reading. And to be totally honest with you, it's just harder. It's painful and it's harder. So, finding people that are safe, because, as Carol was mentioning, in terms of the problems that we see coming out of groups, a lot of that is bad habits and there's bad practices, but a lot of it is also self confidence. I mean, this is vulnerable work. You're getting into a space where all of the experiences you're having are very internal. And then you're having to put those, to somebody here in the external world that you don't know, is a total stranger. You assume their intentions are good, but you don't know. And so if they completely just poo poo everything that you said, it's really normal for people to feel crushed and to go, gosh, I guess I don't have any ability. Like, what am I doing? Why should I bother? So recognizing that there has to be a safety in the relationship between you and the person that you want to practice with, but it can't be too safe with family members. So finding that kind of perfect middle ground. And it doesn't really help you to typically practice with somebody that you already know super duper well. So if you have friends that you know are sort of on your peripheral and they're into this stuff, and you can always preface with, I'm just practicing. I'm just starting. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt. I'm only working out my own system so that I can understand it for myself. Because you don't want whoever you're practicing with to have expectations of that information, because this is going to throw you off and make the dynamic harder. So
Yeah.
making sure you're recognizing the sacredness and the vulnerability in practice sessions, going in with people that have genuinely no expectations of you and also are going to, they're going to take it with a grain of salt. They're not going to go, oh my God, you saw a crow and that means death. So it's over for me, because
Yeah.
it's people do, they really take it too hard. But find that middle ground. It can be kind of tricky. And
Yeah.
it's okay to work with somebody like that more than once, in my opinion.
I also have a Facebook group for anybody who's ever taken my Awaken Your Ability class. I know not everybody who's taken the class is on social media, but for those who are, they've been added into my Facebook group. So a lot of times the students will go in there and say, hey, I want to practice. Does anybody else want to practice? And there's a few hundred people in there. So it's easy to find, other people to practice with and everything. So that's an option too. If you've taken one of my classes, I know that Janet was asking something and she's taken my classes. So Janet, you could go into that group and ask, does anybody want to practice with me? So that's just
Yeah.
another option too. Um, okay. Do we want to hit up some
Yeah,
Q&A now? Yeah.
absolutely. Let's do it. We'll take it from the top and kind of go back and forth. So, I think we talked about this with trust with Beth. Great question. This
Mhm.
is really going to come from practice. You getting to know your own experiences of your psychic senses, having lots of different yeses, figuring out your system, and then going, okay, great. I know when I see an apple, I'm dealing with a teacher or whatever it may be. Practice, 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 as Carol has said.
Yeah. And keep a log so you start to realize how much you're actually getting right.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it normal to have psychic residual moments or signs in rooms? How do you know if it's residual rather than just memory of past event? So I think this might be a semantics thing, but if it is residual, it's psychic. Like when we say psychic residual energy, that's literally what it is. The energy holds the memory of things that
Yep.
have happened in that space. So I always describe it like if you walked into a room and two people were just in that room arguing, and they're not arguing anymore, they're not yelling at each other anymore, but you walk into the room and you feel the energy of, oh, some tension in here kind of thing. That's you're psychically tapping into that energy, right? You're feeling it. And you're empathically probably going to pick it up, but that's what that means. So like we could walk into a space and feel things that happened years ago or feel things that just happened, but it would be coming from reading the energy of the room. So I hope that answers your question.
Also, Pamela, I'm laughing at your comment here. I think Carol and I both identify as social media resistant. So no, you don't have to practice on social media. I
No.
know you're probably being facetious, but you don't have to. You can definitely practice in person. On the phone is even good because it gives you some sort of energetic separation from the person. A little bit harder, can't see anything. But lots of different ways to practice.
Yeah.
Okay, can you turn this on or off? And is it always coming through? So, again, that is a hard line for us. We learn fast and we learn to train that ability to turn it off extensively because we don't want to be disturbed in our day to day life or really at all. It's just one of those things when we're working and we're on, the spirit world knows that and we're tuned in. But when we're off, we're just regular people. And that should be the goal. Nobody should be walking around on all the time. It is exhausting. It would drain you and it would be just totally inappropriate. So
Yeah.
if you hear people that say things like, I can't stop the voices or whatever it might be, there's a recognition that we as teachers want to communicate with those because we both had students like that, and we have to really reframe it for them to let them know you're seeking this in some way, shape, or form. It might be subconscious. You're not maybe in control of the fact that you are aware that you're seeking it, but you're seeking it. You've put that antenna up, you've kept it up, and you have to learn to turn it off.
Yeah. You just turn your awareness off, you know?
Yeah.
So, as a matter of fact, Chris or we would never even read our family members without their permission. Like,
No,
so
never.
we have to be
I
off.
wouldn't do it
If
at
we're
all.
not with a client who's requested it, then we are off.
That's right.
Or demonstrating where people have come because they want readings, but
Yeah.
okay.
All right. Great question. Okay. I read this one, so Carol, I'll let you read it as I start talking about it. But I thought this was such a great question, Sarah. It was you said 2 years ago, you went from a non-believer to have these really incredible experiences. And then you moved on after the initial sort of shock and awe moment and experiencing spirit in different ways to do the healing work. And then as you've gotten into the healing work, you feel like you're just kind of not sure what else is there. And you're asking, was spirit reaching out in the beginning just to get you started on that journey? And so I have not done psychedelics, but I feel like people's awakening journeys are often the way people describe acid trips and things like that, right? Like you have these moments where your mind is just blown wide open. And I think the cool thing is Carol and I have had these experiences and we never needed to use drugs. And it's not necessary. You can achieve it just through regular awareness shifting or breath work or whatever. But you have these transformative experiences that just sort of make you dive into the spiritual realm. And whether it's near death experiences, mediumship, Akashic records, Reiki, energy healing, whatever, people get obsessed. Dopamine hits. You get on the roller coaster, you can't get enough because it's like your soul is going, oh my God, finally you remember there's more than just this black and white stuff. And you're finally starting to pay attention to it. I'm so happy. And it's usually a really joyful experience for people. And just like when they're doing maybe psychedelics or people do drugs, it's sparkly. It feels like you are on another level. Everything is crystal clear. You feel like you're just living in a totally different reality and you can achieve like higher levels of peace. And I want you to know that what we're talking about in terms of the spiritual journey applies across the board. So, mediumship, meditation, Buddhism, whatever. And eventually, as the years continue to go on, it becomes less sparkly. And that's usually when people go, oh, shoot, I have to get into the healing work. I have to pay attention to those other things. So it's great that you got there as rapidly as you did. And that part's not so sparkly, right? It's not so easy. And one of the things Carol and I are really both passionate about is that spiritual work is not a way to bypass doing the healing work. It should be an entry point to doing the healing work, just like you're talking about. So, your question being, can spirits come loud and clear to steer you in that direction so that you would consume all that information? And then maybe that dies down. Maybe you just get into the deep healing work and that stuff is not as prevalent. Absolutely. It doesn't have to be that everybody that has these great spiritual awakenings with spirit specifically and mediumship is meant to be a medium or is meant to keep going down that path. It might take you to a Reiki, Akashic record reading. It might take you in a maze and it might come right back around to where you started. You don't know. Everybody's journey is different. But the idea is to get acquainted with your soul, which also involves doing healing work. So you got exactly where you needed to be.
Yeah.
And they'll use you however they feel they need to get your awareness there.
And the great thing is the healing work continues forever.
Yes,
It's,
exactly. It is
yeah,
a journey, not a
never stop.
destination.
We never stop.
Yes.
Yeah. And that
Great
is one of
question.
the great things about this work is it shows us things that we like our opportunities for healing. Like, oh, now I see where, my belief system was off about this or why this was triggering me or something like that. It's like the universe is always showing us ways when we can tap in intuitively, showing us like opportunities for healing. I call it opportunities for healing. Not like that we have to, but it's an opportunity, and that's a gift to know what the opportunity is. So, okay, Angela, my dominant ability is clairaudience, and it's voices and messages randomly all the time. How do I set boundaries for my personal time, and how do I focus on a message for one person? Thanks. Okay, so this goes back to what we were talking about before of setting the boundaries. So I always think that people tend to go into this sort of work are almost always people who I think came to this lifetime to learn boundaries as one of our major lessons. Boundaries for ourselves, boundaries for others, because a lot of us who are doing this kind of work want to help everybody else. And so we have to learn to set boundaries because sometimes helping everybody else is not really helping them. It's taking over their life lessons, right? So we have to start to learn how to set boundaries and hold boundaries. The spirit world is very willing to respect our boundaries if we're willing to put them up and hold them, right? So if you wanted to, Angela, say to the spirit world, I'm only on when I tell you I'm on. and ready to work. Otherwise, please do not come through. Please do not come through with messages for other people. Okay. So, but you have to hold that, and you can't be like going, when you stop hearing them speaking to you, you can't be going, I kind of miss that they're not talking to me. I wonder why they're not talking to me. Because I always joke around and say, like, that's like breaking up with somebody, telling them you don't want to see them anymore, but then you start stalking them. And every time they, are somewhere and they look out the window, they see you standing out on the street corner watching them. It's kind of, this is just a joke. And, like, I don't mean this seriously, but like, if we're going to say to the spirit world, I need you to hold on to these boundaries for me, we can't be like going out fishing for them and asking them for stuff when we've just said to them, I need you to stick with these boundaries. So understanding what your own boundaries are is really, really important. And Chris and I have both put out to the spirit world, unless we are working in unless we have a client sitting in front of us that has said, I want you to give me a reading, or has scheduled a reading, which is an indication that they want a reading, we're not going to tap in and start picking up information for them. And if you do, you can turn it off. You can say, I'm not receiving that right now. I'm turning it off. Getting into like getting messages for one person at a time, that takes a lot of practice. Like that is part of the development. So it's like something that you have to learn to do, of how to like, we almost like, sometimes I'll like actually have like spirits. If I have several spirits coming in at once, I might be like, okay, you stand here, you stand here, you stand here, and I kind of separate them so that I can receive information from them individually versus as a group. But again, that's when the person sitting in front of me has requested messages. So that would just be something you'd learn along in the development of it. So those are great questions. Thank you for
Yeah,
sharing them.
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. And then we've got Beth, who's saying, sometimes I get an intuitive hit and follow it. And I thought it was for me, but then it turns out it was for me to help someone else. And that, my dear, is mediumship. No, like I say that as a joke, because there's often times when we're in a reading. Just the wonderful woman I had last night, whose mother was saying, do you know this niece is having a hard time with their relationship with your brother, which is, the niece's father. And, my client is going, yeah, well, we don't really talk so much. And her mother's insisting, but you do talk to the niece. And she said, yes, I just don't really talk to my brother much, but I do talk to the niece. And the mother's insisting, well, can you please just call your niece? She just went through a breakup, and she needs, or I'm sorry, she just went through like a fight with the dad, and she needs to hear your opinion and your experiences with her father. That would be helpful. So that's where the spirit is always willing to make you a messenger too. Okay. And that's a hard part, because even it'll happen in readings in those ways. And it's really subtle in that way, where they're just saying, just reach out. Could you have a phone call? Could you have a conversation? Could you give a hug? Could you do this? But in terms of your own experiences and picking up and going, oh, I think this is for me. Like maybe that's, oh my gosh, I need to take $200 out of cash from the bank today. Like I feel that I'm supposed to happen. And then you find out again, your husband gets to the place where he's supposed to be paying the painter and they only take cash. And you're like, well, the cash is in my wallet, but that didn't help. Right. Those are also moments where we're just going to continue to experience throughout our lifetime, in my opinion. As you continue to work on your intuition, it will get better. It will get clearer. You'll start to discern, I don't feel like this is for me. I keep getting the hint of I need to take out cash, but I don't feel like it's for me. And then you can start to look at your inner circle and kind of feel it out. Is it for this person, my inner circle, or this person? And you kind of want to allow that information to bounce off and see where, if you can figure out where it belongs. And you're going to do that for a long time until that system works so well that you're like, flat tire, husband. And then and then you can finally call husband, of course, because you've got his permission, and say, hey, pay attention to those tires. Watch where maybe don't drive on that road where there's always those nails, that type of thing. But it's about a heads up, right? And we definitely want to know where that information goes. And that's going to take practice. But you absolutely can get hits, and for other people, especially the people that you love and are most connected to.
One of the other things that you could try is when you get that hit of, I got to go to the bank, and then you could just say out loud, is it for me? Is that message for me? And go with, if you get a no or a yes, go with that. Karissa and I had an incident today where she asked me a question and I was like, the first thing I get is this. And so that's what you got to go with. Like, so just asking a question and receiving a yes or a no, but you can't keep repeatedly asking and ask for the best 3 out of 5, like don't keep asking the same question and say, give me the best 3 out of 5 times that I do it. Whatever answer you got right away, that's the answer. Take it.
Yeah. And this, like, I'm happy to share the situation because there were so many parts of that I feel like fit to people's issues, right? So I just bought a house last week. We find out there's mold. Got it. Now I have kids with very serious chronic health issues, cannot live in an environment with mold. So this is, oh God, nobody can live in it or move in it until we deal with the mold. So I get and of course that's a whole separate thing because I knew the house had mold and I knew intuitively, and I got the inspector. They go, no, it's not mold. It's just mildew. It's just totally fine. Just scrub it off. And then as soon as we closed on that house, I said, absolutely not. I got to call a mold person because I know it's mold. And sure enough, it was mold. Okay. I did listen to my own intuition, but did I let it make my decisions? No, that's on me. I'll take that one for the team. Okay. And then today I get the quote and I go, this is a good quote. He can get me in Friday. This is not going to be so bad. We have the whole week off next week to move. We'll still be able to get in our deadline. And I put my bank account information in and I just hear no, no. I go to press the button to send no. And I'm going, what do you mean no? And so I ask my guides and I'm like, is this okay? Is this one place going to be the one? No. Okay. And then after, I'm so frustrated because of course I didn't listen to my intuition to begin with. Fine, call Carol, which we don't do too often, only when we're really in pickles, and then I'm like, all right, look, with this situation, I'm no longer trusting my own gut. So I need you to tell me, what do you think of this situation? This particular company? Sure enough, she gets absolutely no right away. And that was coming from her intuition, right? It was just so strong. She knew without a doubt it was a no. But we're pains in the butts too. I want to make that perfectly clear. I know where I'm getting that information, but I still have that analytical side that is going, I'm a mom, my kids can't wait any longer. I'll have to reschedule the movers and it'll be just another big long nightmare of work for me to do. I don't want to listen to that. No, I don't want that to be the answer. So now I'm called in reinforcements. She's giving me the same answer. I'm still fighting with this. And even to the point where, go ahead. What did you saw? Well, talk about the process of how you got the information.
Well, you didn't like my answer.
I
So,
didn't.
so I asked my guides to tell me how to get her to believe my answer. So they said, tell her to pull out a deck of cards and to pull a card from it. And if she gets a red card, it's a yes. If it's a black card, it's a no. So she said, I just happen to have a deck of cards right here, not tarot cards, just regular cards. And I said, pull one. And she pulled it out and she said, it's black. What does that mean? And I said, that's no. That's what they said, no. So she's like, okay. And then the name Dan came to me. So I said, the name Dan is significant here. So, we need to look for the name Dan or, something about Dan. So
you said with the company, you feel like there's somebody named Dan with one of these companies that is a better choice or second offer.
Yeah. So we both Googled mold companies there. And the first company that caught my attention, I said the name of the company. It felt right to me when I said it out loud. So she went to their website and looked, and sure enough, the owner's name was Dan, right? And so she called the company and Dan answered the phone. So got an appointment with Dan. So
exactly. So just know that we fight with our own intuition still. And we even fight with our very best friends who are also professional intuitives. Although I knew when she said no, I had to listen. I just didn't want to hear it. But she was right. And so now we will be getting a second opinion.
But it just goes back to when somebody asks this question, like, how do you know? Go with the first thing that comes. Like, that's going to be your intuition. It's like taking a multiple choice test when you're in high school. And every time you change the answer, you're sorry you did afterwards. You're like, I should have gone with that. I had the answer right for the first time. So go with that.
Yeah. And no, the pattern is for everybody. The more inconvenient it is to listen to your intuition, the more you're going to fight with it. So learn from me because we're all doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So we will send, somebody asked for the classes. Each class is different in terms of cost. So we'll send all that information out to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hi, Bonnie. Okay, I hear when you go
Bonnie.
ask a question to your loved one, how do you know the answer? Is it like the first thing that comes to your mind? Yes. And Bonnie, because you have taken my classes and are an amazing student, I know that you hear your loved one's voice. You have heard him in the past. He'll come through clear, which is what we would call subjective clear audience because it's coming internal and you're hearing it in his voice and the way that he would say things. So and when it drops in like that, you hear it in his dialect, in his words, in his tone. That is him speaking.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Hi, Alan. Okay. What do you feel about intentional, open, and spontaneous conversations with a loved one, asking for signs, patterns, insights, helps with choosing? Well, I think that that mostly happens. I think what you're saying is it's right, spontaneous communication from spirit with somebody that you know and love, and they just like it happens. What do we think about that? I think that that happens especially when you're in the process of working as a student and training and paying more attention, which I know that you are. So that fits the bill for you. And if they pop in a way that feels good and genuine and like you want to have that communication, have your regular boundaries, as Carol was saying. Like, I don't want to be woken up past 12 p.m. Like, they know that's my limit, or they did back when that was still an issue. But now it's just totally off limits. But if you are out in a field seeing your mother's favorite flower and she pops in and you feel that communication from her, that's a joyful experience. And you would have already subconsciously given her permission to come in and have that experience with you. On a soul level, that's where those boundaries are going to come from when it comes to your loved ones and your communication from the people that are important in your life. So even if you have, that's where I tell people, I'm like, don't be afraid, especially as students, to have boundaries with spirit, because your mom that's passed is not going to, those aren't going to apply to her. She has a direct connection and she has subconscious soul permission to be able to come in and have those experiences as long as that's what you desire and what you value and want from her. So sounds like it's wonderful.
I think is that all the questions there? There were
I
some things
think
in the
so.
chat. Um, yeah, glad we have Dan. Right, Patty?
Yes.
I'm not the only one today. Okay, I think is there an exercise to get to know, recognize my spirit guides? That's a good question, Pamela. And I think Carissa and I both include that in our classes where we do things that'll help you connect to spirit guides and start to understand who they are and, kind of how you can access them on the regular. I talk to my guides all the time. Like driving in the car, playing hockey, like whatever I'm doing, I'm talking to my guides. So I love having conversations with them and I feel like they give me such clear answers. Like when I'm asking for a yes or no, they will give it to me very, very clear yes or no. And so I love working with guides. Not all mediums do work with guides, but I think that they're really, really helpful. So
And so helpful on your spiritual journey. That's why, Carol and I will both teach that forever, right? Because it is so and is so important, not just to your connection to the spirit world, but for your personal spiritual journey.
yeah.
They're going to be your team, your support team.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like they said to me once in class, somebody asked, what's the difference between your intuition and your guides? And I started to answer, and my guides stopped me and they said, stop. And they're like, just tell them this. Your intuition is your tool, your guides are your team. And I thought, oh, that makes it so easy, like the way they just explained that. So your intuition is your tool, your guides are your team. So
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Pamela, I feel like you're always talking with mom and dad. I love that. Absolutely. Do you make decisions without consulting your guides? Isha, you know me better than that. Yes, I do. And then I regret it. No, but absolutely, because we're human. And I feel for just to summarize my spiritual journey has taken me up, out, and all the way back around. And it had shown me that the most sacred thing is being human. And with that are making mistakes. So I don't live a life that is trying to cautiously avoid making all mistakes. So I embrace ignoring my intuition. I know that might sound absurd and it is a little bit of absurdism in there too. I'm okay with that philosophically. But, I want to have those mistakes and experience. I'm not trying to use the spirit world as a cheat system. And I think that's really important because a lot of people will enter into this work and do classes because they're like, great, I can stave off all my anxiety. I can know everything ahead of time. And then I have to worry. I know that that's not where you're coming from, but Carol and I have both seen it. And readings are not an antidote to your anxiety. They can actually make anxiety worse. So we love to kind of caution people with that. If you're coming to be able to satisfy something in you that needs different types of healing, a reading is not going to do that. You're still going to have to address the anxiety or the where that's coming from. But yeah, sometimes I willfully ignore my intuition because I want to do the thing anyway. And I do feel like, in that house buying, purchasing, whatever, um, I knew, right? But it was not a big enough stop sign for me to sign off on this house. Like I knew whatever was in there, it was worth whatever cost it was going to cause, and because there were all these other great things and signs that I got about the house. So it was this sense of, I guess I felt safe to be able to ignore that. But yes, we definitely make decisions without our guides. But do we ask to sometimes? Yes. Do we ask and then sometimes ignore them? That too.
Yeah.
Or do we ask, get the information, like with, I'm thinking of you with the retreat, Carol, right? Like where you hear something and you don't understand it, so you argue with it, and then you go, well, I'm going to do it anyway. And then a year later, it appears to be exactly what they said that you didn't want to hear to begin with. And you go, oh, that's why it didn't make sense at the time.
I'll never forget one time I asked my guides about working with somebody in particular because I had asked the universe to send me a certain kind of person to work with. They showed up. I'm like, oh, the universe gave it to me. And I asked my guides and they said no, but my ego really wanted to work with this certain kind of scientist. So I ignored what they said, did it, and then I was sorry afterwards. And I told my guides I was sorry that I didn't listen to them, and they said, "We knew you were going to do it anyway." I mean, they know what we're going to do. But it's like Karissa said, we're not in this world to not experience the human experience, right? So,
Yeah.
we're not here to get every answer from them so that we don't have to be a human. We're supposed to be here and get all the human experiences too. So our ego will talk us out of things.
Yes.
So that
And
we'll learn from
sorry, you just said something that made me think of something we were talking about earlier, which is also, that's a good reason why it's, don't panic if you're get a sign and you don't understand it. We get a lot of that. And then people are like, oh no, they're trying to tell me something I don't understand. It's okay. You'll make mistakes. It's fine. Just because they're sending you a sign doesn't mean that if you miss that, it's going to be traumatic or terrible. It's okay. Know that your awareness is actually missing signs all the time. Even if your intentions are up for to not, you're definitely still missing things. So it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Susan was asking, do you work with spirit guides and psychic readings or just a mediumistic? So how I work is like if I'm doing a psychic reading, I will tell my client I'm going to start off psychically, which means I'm tapping into your energy to get the information. But at some point, I'm going to invite your guides to come in and assist, and they'll be coming from the spirit world. So then I've just opened the door to the spirit world, which means your loved ones might come in too while I'm, working mediumistically. But then when that switch happens, when I go from working psychically to the guides, I let my client know. I say, okay, now your guides are giving this information on top of what I just picked up psychically, just so they will know. But that was a good question, Susan, because I do bring in the guides to kind of fill in blanks in psychic readings. Just letting
Yeah.
know the difference of where it's coming from.
Yeah, and I typically start. I typically ask people where they want to start. Do you want to hear from loved ones that have passed, or do you want to work with your guides? I like to start out that way, and then as things will ping against my psychic piece, I will just kind of say that's coming for me, or this piece is coming for me. So yeah, similar but slightly different the ways that we start, but it's really all the same.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Did we
right.
get everybody? No more open
We
questions
did.
there?
Thank you for your comment, Jeff. We're glad that you think we're
Oh,
cute. I know. I mean, because honestly, we have to be honest about our experiences. We're people, and that's okay. Sometimes we're going to ignore things too, and there is nothing wrong with that. Embrace your human experience and in your imperfection. That's what spirit wants for you.
yeah. Yeah. And this just came up. I was chatting with a student earlier today, and I'm like, we're going to make mistakes because we're human. And, we're going to make mistakes in readings. We don't want to. We take this very seriously and we've worked very hard to develop, but we're human beings. And human beings make mistakes. And so we might not understand everything. There might be a time that we want to do a reading for somebody and we can't make the connection for them. And it's just part of being a human being. This isn't a scientific way of like, this is how it's always going to happen exactly in this way. So we can't always say exactly how it's going to turn out, how the connections are going to be.
I'm just checking in with Elizabeth. Did we miss your question? It says, I think that missed mine. I'm just making sure that wasn't a question that we missed.
Okay.
Because we don't see any more questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I see it up. Yes, sorry, I do see it. It's the one about the black butterflies. I did read that before, which was really cool. So you had said that you are constantly visited by black butterflies. I'm assuming these are like real butterflies, not ethereal butterflies. I have discovered that when they visit me, they actually land on me not soon after someone passes away. Yes, these are big pieces of the way that our psychic and our intuitive hits are going to come up, right? You start to notice your own patterns. So well done, you've already done that. You know what you equate the butterflies with. Yesterday, a huge moth came and came to me. I'm trying to figure out what that may signify. You're not going to know until after it happens. That's the hard part, right? Is some of this is just going to be trial and error, and you're going to have to repeat it several times before you recognize it's a pattern, and then you're able to discern the meaning.
Could I cut in there for just a second, Carissa?
Yeah,
I would
absolutely.
say there was probably some knowing that came to you in that moment of the moth or some feeling in your body. So if you can go back to that moment of seeing the moth, what did you feel or what like knowing came to you? Because that might be your intuitive symbol, like the moth might be what it means for you. But like Carissa said, you'll understand it later for sure. But I always say if somebody asks me like, what does this sign mean or this symbol mean, always go to what your feeling or thoughts were at that moment, because that's
Yeah.
your intuition and that's the important thing.
Yes. And the other piece that you asked about dreams, which is also really important and something that's very consistent for people, is you're having premonitions in your dreams, precognitive dreaming, and something is happening in the dream, and then it does come to fruition later in like your waking life, but it's not exact as it was in the dreams. Dreams work in symbols as well, and as long as I've been doing this, I've had the same situation with my dreams. They're still not. I do occasionally have dreams where the exact wording comes out in a situation or the exact thing happens, but I'm still more likely to have dreams where it's sort of discombobulated. The message is there and I can usually extract and put it together. But this is such a terrible example, but it's the only one that I can think of right now. I remember my cousin, her husband, before they got married. I remember seeing him on an operating table, and they had taken organs out into the bowl that they put your organs in. Sorry if you don't know about that. Now you do. During surgery, and I know she was watching, crying, and she was like very upset. But I had no idea like what was going on. To be honest with you, this was years ago, probably over a decade. I thought he was going to die because I didn't know. And that's where your panic goes to. But what ended up happening was he ended up having thyroid cancer, had to get the thyroid removed. And then he was fine. And he's great. And he's healthy and he's wonderful. So it was all okay. And of course, she was upset and crying when she found out. But I thought it was going to be this sort of, it was still devastating, but I thought it was going to be like life ending, and it wasn't. He just needed surgery and he was okay. But I couldn't put that into perspective until after that had come to pass. So a lot of times those dreams are like that. However, just like with the butterflies, over time and pattern recognition, you'll begin to realize what those patterns mean in your own dreaming space. And I would love to say that there's a really universal aspect here, like a dictionary that you can go look at that would tell you everything. But I'm sure, Carol, I'd love to hear your opinion, but my experience with my students is that it's all over the place.
Yeah, and I think like even though there are books that have universal signs in it, the truth is what your gut is telling you in the moment is really what's important. It's not what another book says or what somebody else tells you it should mean. It's what is coming to you in that moment. That's what's significant. So that's
Yeah.
what, And I think I read this right that in the dream, she saw that her friend, who is normally pretty small, had put on some weight and it turned out she was pregnant. And that's beautiful. So you may start to notice you having dreams like that of you seeing people who like suddenly have weight put on them and then they end up being pregnant. And that's
Yeah.
one of the ways that you receive that message. I know that when I'm doing readings, if I notice that I've put my hand on my stomach and I get a sensation of my stomach growing, that's my sign of somebody's pregnant that I need to talk
Yeah.
about. So you
I
start to notice what your language is, what your signs.
and it's all over the map. I worked with someone years ago who she used to crave Doritos when it was a boy and tuna fish when it was a girl. So if she started craving one of those, she knew someone was pregnant with a boy or girl, which I just thought was so crazy, but very, very cool. So it's different for everybody.
That's funny
I
because when I
I
was pregnant, I wanted Doritos with tuna fish, and I don't like tuna
Is
fish.
it really?
I
Baby
don't like
symbols.
fish. So,
Yeah, that's so
but it
funny. I
wasn't a
can't even
symbol. I
imagine.
actually ate it.
Well, but maybe that's more universal than we think. I don't know. I don't know. That is too funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's different. I like with babies, I see gender because, which again, that's a whole separate conversation. But I see sex when they're born with the blanket color that they're wrapped in. If somebody's showing me in spirit that a baby is going to come through,
Yeah.
it's different for everybody. But yeah, the dreams are tough. Don't let them drive you crazy. You'll figure it out over time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all play, so have fun with it and trust it.
Yes,
That's the thing. Having fun and trusting it. Yeah.
absolutely.
It'll come
And
along.
really asking yourself, is any harm going to come from me listening to this intuitive hit, or is any harm going to come to me? So then you, like when I go out and it's 75 and sunny and I hear bring a jacket, I'm like, well, this is ridiculous. It's 75 and sunny. Why would I need to bring a jacket? Right. But like, if there's no harm from me listening to that, I'm going to go grab the jacket. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely bring the jackets now. But I'm going to run back and get the jacket. My husband's going to go, a jacket? And I'm going to go, don't ask. And sure enough, it's going to rain and drop 15 degrees and I'll be warm and cozy and everybody else will be freezing. So have fun with it.
Right. Use it to your advantage.
Yes.
So I think that's pretty much everything unless we have any other questions. But we are so grateful to everybody. Oh, how do you recommend starting a journal to keep your notes or abilities? Um, I would just grab a notebook, and I don't have one on my
Yeah.
desk, but a journal like thing, and you can date it if you want, put the date at the top of the page, and then like as the day goes on, you either write in it the things that you intuitively knew before they happened, or at the end of the day try to go back and think about everything. Like, oh, I took a right turn instead of going my usual straight through that intersection and found out later there was a traffic jam down that way. Or, anything at all that comes up that feels like it was an intuitive knowing or feeling or anything like that, just keeping it through the day. Chat GBT for that purpose. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not
Or
taking
just your
a lot
notes
of
app.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Just your
I
notes
think
app on your
anything in
phone.
here is going to take me an hour. So so I have to keep the notebook. I'm old style, old school. But yeah, whatever's easiest for you, even if you, yeah, like can speak it into the phone and just put it, that's good too. Whatever's easiest for you. Um, but yeah, but I think, yeah, I think that's everything. Like we're, first of all, so grateful for you guys for joining us for these questions tonight because we have so much fun talking about this.
Yes,
I don't know if you can tell, but we love it. Um, and
we do.
we love helping other people understand it and working through all the myths and the nonsense that have been put out there about this work and how it works and everything. Like we really want people to really understand the truth about it and to know that it is an ability that can be so helpful to you, whether you want to use it for your own day-to-day decision making, your own connection to your loved ones, or maybe going on to use it as work somewhere down the road. Whatever it
And
is,
whether that means giving readings or pairing it with work that you already do.
right?
It can enhance things like we see a lot of therapists as students. We see, which can get tricky boundary wise, but they figure it out. But there are so many different ways that you can learn to combine this with your work, your hobbies to enhance your life.
Yeah. So, like we said, we will send out an email tomorrow with some of this information and some things that might be helpful to you. We'll be doing this again next month. Do we have one next month?
July,
July?
because you'll be in Ireland. Yes.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I'll be in Ireland.
Yes, I know.
Okay.
I don't
Um,
forget because I wish I was going.
yeah.
Uh,
Yes,
but
it would
yes, we
be.
will be back on July 15th.
Yeah, and we'll send emails out there about it with the registration sign up, and you can also find it on social media if you're on there too, just to keep you all updated about it.
And if you have a topic you want us to talk about, please, you can drop it in the chat now, or you can respond to the email with it tomorrow. We want to keep, this was the number one request, so we're glad we got that in, but we want to keep, keeping it fresh and giving you what you want to hear about too. So whether it's dreams or whatever it might be, feel free to make a suggestion. We're listening.
Yeah, we'd love it.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you so much, everybody. We hope you have a wonderful week, and don't forget to pay attention.
Right. And trust it.
Exactly. All right. Take care, everybody. Good
Night,
evening.
everybody. Thank you for joining us.